Yo, what's up, guys? We got the buff on the Liam, and we also got the buff on the Centaur Knight. I still don't really know how to pronounce this. I guess it is a Pholus or... yeah, Pholus. I guess it's not much more difficult than that. But first, let's look at Liam. So, Liam is always using his ultimate power right now when there's only 3 targets or less on the field, which works in about every dungeon out there. But then... does that work in which dungeon? And does he become a best in slot in a dungeon for a best speed run team? Well, there's definitely a lot of teams out there that are possible, but I'm looking for the fastest team. So what you do have as issue with Liam is that Liam is a 4-turn cooldown unit. And by being a 4-turn cooldown unit, it does mean that you cannot use your S2 in the mid boss and then also use your S2 in the final, or the S3 in the final boss. So both S3s is what you do want to get over there. But what you can do is add in the Ezio, and the Ezio skill 3 lowers the cooldown if you use your skill, and therefore you're able to use your S3 both in mid and final boss. So I ruined up that team. Turn order is going to be a Prilia into the Julie, into the Ezio, into the Homunculus, and then into the Liam. I tried the other way around as well, but then the Liam starts hitting the boss at like 70-80% rate, and then he kills it to like 40%. So definitely not enough damage right there unless you go for some kind of Seek thing. But I think what's very important in every freaking Giants team out there is that you do go for a Homunculus. If you don't go for a Homunculus, you have just so much more chance to lose. And you just don't want to waste your energy, rather a little bit slower than wasting your energy. Might you think, say, you're super close to Julie one-shotting, just upgrade 3 runes and then you would Julie one-shot? No, actually, this is where you do see, the numbers, it's pretty quickly. But if you go to the golems that you're hitting, the moment that you hit the golems, first few hits are like 5.7k, then you go into something along the lines of a 3.4k. I would need another whole hit of 3.4 that you see flying by super quick, or maybe even more than that, to actually just simply clear that. So in that case, doesn't really help at all. But that also does make where Liam is not really that crazy in this team, because by all means in this, you might as well just use the old Sigmarus team, which was looking something like this. The Sigmarus team is pretty much better than this. It is faster than this, and it's just... it's not easier to build, I would say. I think that this might be the team that you're seeing right now is slightly bit easier to build. Someone is saying, isn't Luna better than the Homunculus? Yes, for damage output, but not for safety. The main thing is your Prilia is going to be potato. The moment that your Prilia beats potato, you die. That is just the big issue, whereas you would save the run. So those are the kind of things that you want to keep in mind. So I would say if you have good enough runes and no Serath, this is probably the team that you're looking at. But before we look at the other units, let's talk about the sponsor of today's video, which is once again the Huawei App Gallery. And I got a very important message for this one. So you probably heard about the Huawei App Gallery before. They have been sponsoring this channel for quite a while. So we do have the multiple offers throughout the months every time where we get all of the coupons cheaper and that kind of stuff. But there's one big important but right now. Collecting the diamonds mostly do transfer over to the next month. However, for this month, they will not transfer over to December. So really make sure that if you're using the Huawei App Gallery on the December month, make sure that you finish all of your diamonds. If you want to keep any updates on any of those kind of campaigns, definitely do check their Discord all the way at the bottom that you can see over here as well. It is linked in the description down below too. Main reason is, why is it not transferring over to next month, is because next month is going to have really good coupons and they're going to go for even way better promotions. If you're not familiar with it, I would highly recommend to follow the steps on the screen to create an account and download the game. And from there, you can start using all of those campaigns that you can see here on the screen. So definitely highly recommended to do that. Also, mainly recommended, stay tuned for next month because next month is going to have some really good campaigns. So once again, I want to thank Huawei App Gallery for sponsoring this video and making mine and also your packs cheaper. With a Zerath, I see a possibility where maybe a Liam team kind of works where you would go for, let's say, a Zerath into a... what's it called? Then you probably go Prilia or maybe the Prilia before. Then you go for the Luna into a Homu into a Liam. Like, I could see something like this, but this is maybe also the point that if you were to add in a Deborah, these two might already just straight up kill. So is Liam a best in slot in Giants? No. Is he very usable in Giants if you don't have other options? Absolutely yes. So let's actually add into the other one. Someone's asking for Lucifer. If you were to go for Lucifer, is it still on screen? Yes. You could definitely go for a Lucifer in this. But then again, you sure could go for a Liam in here. That is an option with that turn order. But a Luna would kind of do the same thing at that point. So that is kind of the thing out there. They all at some point kind of start doing more or less same damage as one another. You can also add in the Pholus in here. He does do pretty good damage, but he does have one really particular big issue. And the big issue is that his skill 1 is speed scaling and his S2 is non-speed scaling. Therefore, we have inconsistent scaling between skill 1 and skill 2. And therefore, his damage output, if he decides to go for an S1, is simply not that high. So I tested the damage on this thing. He can actually do really good damage on S2. He's doing about like 50Ks without branding, 85Ks with branding, but his skill 1 is also just doing 70K. So there's a really big difference between damage on point A and point B. So therefore, very simply said, a Luna is always better than this thing. However, if you are a new account, has no Luna, then you could still go Lin, which may be a better option, but you can also go for this thing. That's like, it's kind of up to you which one you want to go for. Lin is a little bit more all-round, but let me quickly showcase you the damage on that thing as well. Okay, so a team where you could, for example, use it is the very typical team like this. Still, of course, you want to keep in that homunculus. That is definitely a must out there. But you can see that his damage is definitely pretty substantial. It is good, it is strong, but he's definitely not a best in slot similar to the Liam. Can absolutely be used, nothing wrong with using him, but he's not a best in slot in any kind of particular sense, shape, or way. You can see here he's not doing as much damage. It's definitely on the final boss where he's showcasing the most amount of damage if he does do his S2. With the S1, you're going to see a lot less damage that way. So let's see what he would go for. We have this, we have that, yes sir. And S1, 80k. It's not bad damage. Like, it's definitely not bad damage, but the Luna would do about same damage. Is he maybe a little bit safer than a Luna because of the right element? You can definitely make that argument. That is definitely true. But then again, a Luna's way more all-round. So if you're more an early game account, do you want to start skilling them up with like fusions, waste a lot of energy, that kind of shape? Yeah, it would be a little bit harder. It's maybe easier to build. That is kind of true. This thing is potentially easier to build. That is actually a true statement right there. So yeah, it's just kind of depending on you what you want to focus on. This one is, however, really strong in Elunia. So if you're missing units for a semi-fast Elunia kind of style, like you can saw it over there, way more damage. This was still mediocre-ish kind of setup, just ruined it at whatever. This unit is really strong in Elunia, so if you want to place it towards Elunia, it's definitely a best of slot in there. I am not 100% sure if he would be really good if we go to the R5 Water Beast. I'm not too sure. Same for the one over here. I'm not too sure if it's going to do that great in there. It would do great if you just put in like, okay, I'm just going to throw in like 18 units and I want like 30 to 40 second teams. It will do very good in there. But if you actually want like a super fast kind of team, then it's probably not your way to go. So if we were to put it to the Sanctum of Fairies, this is my normal team. I would say most people have the top 3 units, but don't have a Sonya. So therefore it's also directly that Sonya replacement right there. And then we just smack it in and it will totally do fine. Like, this thing does way more than enough damage and you would absolutely clear the living shits out of everything. And this dungeon is also really nerfed, so it's definitely a lot easier to get going into this whole dungeon too, where you simply is like, oh, I actually legitimately never opened it from here on this client. So we have the boss animation. Nice. So yeah, you clear that. If you have your Pholus moving second right now, he could one-shot this whole part, which he definitely cannot, but the 2 of them will definitely take it down. You also see a big difference in the damage already, where this dude was doing on death breaks like 85k, so he's definitely pretty hard scaling on enemy max HP, where this thing doesn't have that much max HP. So if there's more scenarios where there's more max HP scaling, he could be a little bit more interesting than what he is in this kind of scenario. So, and I think that's pretty much just the most case for him. Like, sure, you could maybe put him towards like Punisher Script or like Steel Fortress or whatnot, but I would simply recommend don't, because this is the point. Like, if you're planning to use this one, you might as well have been throwing a Lin at it or a Luna. Well, would maybe not really recommend Luna in here, but you get the idea. You might as well just use something else. And therefore, I would say he's not really a best in slot anywhere, so maybe not really focus on him too much. But then back to the Liam. Where is Liam actually usable? So we have this team right here, and we have like variations on this team. Does a Liam really fit in this team? And I would honestly say not necessarily. Well, there's one team. Wait, what was the team again? So there were a few teams. I'm not exactly sure. I will link all of the teams with the Liams in the description down below that I used before. All of them are made a lot easier because if you have the HP bar of the boss, normally you would have to be at like 40 or 35% of the boss to actually clear the whole thing. Now Liam will clear it from like probably 55 to 60, clear the whole way down. So there's a lot of options that you could do. For example, something along the lines of this. You also have that, of course, in the Dragons team. You have something along the lines of this. Someone's also saying a Julie, Shaina, Sabrina, Luna, Liam. So I showcased all of those teams before. I will not really be rebuilding all of those teams. I will just link you down below. You can definitely check those teams out. Where I mentioned before is like, hey, you need your Liam doing a not that much damage. Focus more on the damage of the other ones. Now you can actually focus more on your Liam just cleaning up the whole thing. So Liam is definitely really nice in the teams with a little bit lower rune requirement. Another place where you can use the Liam is, of course, in R5. And then the big question is, we removed the Bale. Of course, you can play different with the leads now as well. You don't really need these units. You can also potentially put a Miriam in here because that would help because we don't really care about the death break in the second hit. But I'm mainly curious, can Liam have HP or like full kill second wave without anything else? Which is potentially really the case. So in this case, we just need you to kill that, which you easily do. I think the boss is like 280, 300k-ish HP. So that's definitely a thing. Now the big question is, Liam just has to survive. Liam will always S3. And then ultimate power, definitely not as much damage as I was expecting. That's actually way lower damage than I was expecting. That's kind of mediocre, where Bale does like good old 80ks at that point. This thing was doing 20ks. That's weak as hell, brother. Okay, I was expecting way more damage out of that. How is he doing ignore defenses for that low? Late death break? Well, the thing is, death break doesn't matter shit if you're ignore defensing. So I would say if you were to do this, you probably need a Miriam in there, and then you need guaranteed death or like branders on the side units. That's kind of what. Let's try another run. Let's see if it was a fluke or if it was that bad. Because he starts from half HP, so he should right away have his ignore defense no matter what. A Brand would help him, a Miriam would help him, Deborah wouldn't help him. So those are kind of the factors in there that would help him a bit with all of that good stuff. But let's just see like how much damage he felt like was doing. Like yeah, that's how does it work where he was doing 20ks first and doing 50ks later? That's kind of strange, no? That's not supposed to be the case. How is he doing 50ks later on? Is he not doing ignore defenses right away from the get-go or something? That's kind of strange, though. But yeah, it's definitely something that you could use in a team like this, where if you guarantee that he moves in a second round, he would do potentially a good bit of damage on the boss. But I'm really not sure why he's, or what I'm doing wrong. Because branding sure ups the damage, but doesn't up the damage from 20 to 50. Like, that's... yeah, that's kind of strange. I'm not really sure why that's the case. Maybe he's not really... that could that be a thing that he's not right away registered at 50% HP and he's the first one to hit or something weird? I'm not so sure what's the case in that. Would definitely be good for Fire R5, 100%. But it seems that Bale still does the job a little bit better. So once again, maybe not really a place where he's best in slot. But I just saw one particular funny thing when I was going through my own profile for a second. If we check my profile, one of my fastest teams is actually a Liam team. That is this team. It is just not that consistent because A, Liam did not always do S3. And then again, it's also secondary, not fully consistent because the Shaina is a shithead and 2.25% of the time, she's not doing her stupid skill. But I actually want to rebuild this just for fun. And then also maybe put a side in it where you go for a Sabrina and just see how fast it is compared to the Agrius team. But then again, I do really expect that the Agrius teams are a lot easier to rune than whatever I'm going to rune on this thing right now. Okay, after reruning a little bit more, I needed the 220 extra on this and the 86 extra on this and then the 60 extra on this. So let's now run in, I think, the fastest team out there without a Zerath. You can definitely go faster with a Zerath, but then you would still need a def break. So in that case, it's still kind of same-ish, but this is definitely crazy fast as a team. Plus, normally I had the issue where this was not perfect AI state, and now this is always perfect AI state. So if China was not a shithead and missing 2.25% of the time, this would be the Giants team that I would be running all the time. Because it literally doesn't really get much faster than this. And that is definitely an insane team. Only difference it can make in how fast it runs is pretty much, are they doing S1s or S2s, the kind of style? Or Giants, yeah, sorry, not Giants. But yeah, this is pretty much as fast as it gets. It doesn't really get much faster than this. But that was prior to this was definitely not perfectly isolated. If you have even a stronger Luna, which I would say is not that easy to do, but it is possible to do it with a Luna, then you could even skip out the Luna double turn. Like if you have an Uldong and a Zerath, I can definitely see it. But then again, you would still need to def break though, so it's still kind of same-ish. But 20-second auto is already pretty darn insane. But I would say maybe Uldong and Zerath, you can drop this down. But I would say, would I recommend people to start running this? Not really. You probably have to. I would higher recommend to go for the Argus team because it's just a lot easier to run. It's just way simpler to maintain. But this would definitely be a very solid run just for fun. Like if you ever get scout battles, do sub 20-second runs. Then yeah, this would pretty much be the only way for people that are not having the LD5s to make it work, I guess. But yeah, this team, yeah, can see this work. I thought I was doing, like, this team in the end did get the 18, maybe I had a one-shot where Luna didn't take double turn in that one or something. I don't remember. Well, run would look something like this on if I were to run this. But again, Agria's team is about 2 seconds, 1 second slower than this. Not sure. But yeah, that's definitely as fast as it gets. Maybe if I can make it where Luna doesn't have to double turn to clear, then maybe it gets to the 18 seconds, just taking away a second from it or something like that. I'm not 100% sure where that second less came from. But that is an option where Liam is actually a lot better than it used to be. But then again, would I recommend to run it? Not really. So there's a lot of options where both Pholus and the Liam can be used, both in pretty much every dungeon, both like Giants, Dragons, even in like Punisher or Steel Fortress or even R5. But are they really best in slots? Not necessarily really. It just gives you more options to work with. So you can choose A or B. But it's also one of those things, if we had the buff on the units slightly earlier, where we did not have the Agrius just yet, it would have been a lot more interesting, right? So those are kind of the things that we do have going on for us right now. So thanks a lot for watching for this video. I'll see you always in the next one. Thanks for watching. If you would like to see more guides, join the Discord and check out the content tab for the guide video archive, which contains all of the guides that you might need. Hope to see you there.